Welcome to the MarTech.org podcast. If you like what you hear on this episode, join us online September 24th to 25th for free at the MarTech Conference. Register today at martech.org/conference.
Welcome to the MarTech.org podcast. I'm Mike Pastore, Editorial Director at MarTech. Today, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about customer experience with Holden Bale, Global Head of Experience and Commerce at Merkle, which is an experience consultancy that's part of Dentsu. Hi, Holden. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right. So customer experience is becoming critically important to consumers. Nearly 2/3 say they put more value on the experience than the price when they're out shopping. So Holden, my first question to you is, it's such a broad area. At a high level, what's setting apart the organizations that offer the best customer experience?
Yeah. So, and just to every single year, we do research with digital leaders globally. And so it's interesting because we can kind of see the year-over-year time series trends and sort of what pops up and what doesn't. And then we also look at it through the consumer angle. And honestly, a lot of it has to do with brilliant basics. We classify 19% of the companies we survey, 90% of functionally all the companies in the world is what we would call CX leaders based on various attributes that we've developed over the years. The rest fall into other categories. The CX leaders say that they have and can show and demonstrate that they have an end-to-end customer experience strategy, something that's not about a specific channel or a specific touch point. There's a holistic view on the experience they want to deliver, the principles for it, pillars for it, and what that means across their organization. For the most part, CX leaders, their investment decisions are much more driven by customer feedback than other types of companies. They'll look at a lot of other companies. They're looking at what their competitors are doing. They're thinking about the finance pressure they're under. There's a big statistical difference in CX leaders in terms of focus on consumer feedback and how that bakes into their processes and their strategic initiatives. Leading CX orgs generally score better, not on the quality of their technology or the modernity of their technology, but how well integrated their technology is, whether it's old, new, whatever, and different. What's interesting, though, I will call this out, it's an important point. Almost everybody scores poorly. Almost everybody thinks that their technology integration is terrible. So you're kind of doing better, but it's better in a pretty bad category. And the final thing, and the numbers for this is a brand new criterion for us because we've been doing more and more AI work the last few years. The gulf between CX leaders and every other type of company in terms of AI enablement is insane. It is enormous. 72% of CX leaders say they've implemented some sort of AI-driven technology that drives the customer experience. All of the other categories are in the 30s. It is far and away the biggest percentage difference in our analysis.
Wow, that's impressive. So we know that these CX leaders, they're using technology, like you just said, to power experiences, and the ones who are doing best are better at that. But they're also playing by a different cultural playbook. Can you talk a little bit about that and whether culture or technology needs to come first if you're going to rethink your CX?
I think it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. I think there's, we talk a lot inside of Merkle about digital transformation change fatigue and how many companies and clients, maybe even you, Mike, I don't know, the MarTech podcast is like, so you feel like you've been investing in technology, you feel like you've gone through a bunch of different changes, COVID drove a lot, and people are tired. And if we look at most of the clients we work with, we think we do a pretty good job for it. They go do a better job than our competitors. Even they say, we're making very scaled investments in technology. We're not necessarily seeing the ROI we expected. We're not necessarily seeing the digital laggards catch up to the digital leaders like an Amazon or an Apple or an Alibaba. I do think it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, though. We tend to look at it through the lens of experience-led business transformation is an alignment vehicle. You need the right human capital, but you also need the right technology. One of the things we look for and we talk about a lot is with our clients trying to drive this notion of agility should be a board level metric. Because once COVID happened, all of a sudden, everybody started talking about agility in earnings calls. CEOs and investment analysts and CFOs, all of a sudden, everybody cared about the word agility. And for us, probably the leading indicator of successful transformation is, are you improving your agility? Because you can hold all other things constant. So 60% of folks in our survey said their marketing technologies are not well integrated. Even for leaders, it was only 54% felt positively. When I talk to chief digital officers, chief technology officers, chief marketing officers, about half of them say it's their org, their process, their incentives, not their technology. That's their biggest barrier to change, the customer sort of led change. And then looking at our data, 1/3 of all respondents said that CX involves too much complexity and departmental overlap for them to have a cohesive experience strategy. So sort of Conway's law, they're so focused on their org design that they can't have connected experiences. They can't organize their experience around the consumer. So I think it's a little bit of both. And the most successful transformations I've seen, large-scale technology change are used as the excuse to drive the cultural change, to drive the business change and bring that org into the future.
Yeah. Who owns CX is always kind of a big mystery. And you sort of alluded to it there. You said, I talked to CDOs, I talked to CMOs, I talked to CTOs. Depending on how your organization is organized, who's in charge of CX?
It's a through line. It's a through line, and you align a business to your product, your sales, your service. The customer is the channel, right. Like the customer is the touch point at the end of the day. Everything else is a tactic and a tool to reach the customer, whether you have a website, whether you do CRM, you're in B2B, you do ABX, you do big brand advertising. It's all to reach the customer. And so it is not surprising that the companies that we see in the market, who we tend to all look at and say, wow, they're doing really well, their organizational design reflects a bit more customer centricity.
When you're talking to customers and you've got the experiences built on these technology platforms, you generate a lot of data. What are the specific data points that the CX leaders pay more attention to than other companies?
This is going to sound ridiculous, so please don't hold it against me. They pay attention to the data that they create from actually implementing their CX initiatives. So, test and learn. We've been talking about test and learn for how long? 2 decades, maybe?
Long time.
Just test. We never really learned, right? We never really learned what did we do through that conversion rate optimization program. We implemented these 2 different search solutions, which one drove better on-site conversion for a retailer. So 42% of CX leaders, their primary learning is from previous CX investments, but only 42%. Even they are not necessarily testing and learning from their own optimization program. So one thing to really focus on, I believe CX leaders look at and build a body, a corpus of knowledge over time. And as they're testing and rolling out new things, it actually refines their business strategies. Another metric, retention and customer lifetime value. It's not surprising CX leaders, and it is a very substantial difference, are much, much, much more likely statistically to prioritize retention and customer lifetime value as C-suite metrics. As a proxy, they're much more likely to focus on profitability than they are on pure acquisition, proportionally. They still tend to focus a lot on acquisition, but compared to other categories. There's 2 other things that I'll say on this question. One, CX leaders are the only group at all, it was 0% for everybody else, who actually ranked internal collaboration as a benefit of customer-led strategy. So sort of that unifying the org and service of journeys, connecting media and CRM, your website, your app, your marketing, connecting all of that, your sales organization. They actually see that as a benefit, as an internal org benefit. The second thing, they're the only group that when you say, what's the rationale for CX? It's not about revenue generation or this, that, the other. They have that on the list. They're the only group that say, hey, it's just expected. Our consumers just expect this. The other leaders don't, the other groups don't think that way. They don't score in that way.
All right. You alluded to this earlier, but I thought one of the most interesting findings was the difference between companies that focus on their competition compared to companies that focus on their customers. I think every company I've worked with has been kind of obsessed with the competition, but maybe it's the customers where your obsession needs to be. If you can go into a little bit detail on that.
Yeah, and this is, I think that this was my favorite piece of data, if I'm honest with you. I don't know if I'm biased, because I've been a consultant for a long time, and you always sort of say to people, oh, customer-led business transformation, the experience economy, those kinds of things. I've never actually seen the data to back it up until we got it this year. So the data point was, what percentage of respondents say that they should make their investment decisions based on customer feedback versus all other types of categories, including competitors? The only category that was above 50% were CX leaders. 58% of CX leaders say their investment decisions truly factor in customer, could be voice of the customer, could be sentiment, could be direct service, could be quant qual, whatever the case might be, that customer feedback is a driving mechanism in their prioritization as a business. Everybody else, way below. The next category was 41, but the rest are all below 30. And then it flips on its head, where it's the laggards in terms of CX who say their investment decisions are based upon their competitors, sort of like keeping up with the Joneses. What are people doing in my direct category? And I think it's not surprising because it might seem a little bit cliched, but if you think a lot of the sort of major digital business transformations we've seen, people use examples like Uber, they use examples like Wealthfront, they use examples like Carvana. Those three companies did not change the underlying business model of digital brokerage services, of basically rideshare services, and of buying cars online. They changed the UX, they changed the experience paradigm. That's how they disrupted the industry. So it's just a really interesting point of data that it's only CX leaders who are scoring high in that metric. And even they are not as far along as we'd hope to see. We'd hope that number would be much greater than 58% in future years.
Yeah, you engage with your customers every day. You almost never engage with your competition. So
no. And again, if your focus is your competition, you just have a lovely race to the middle. You just have a lovely race to mediocrity. And you as sort of an industry are just waiting for people to disrupt you, you know? We talk so much about customer centricity, but to me, that is the number one metric for whether you embody it. Are you making capital expenditure and strategic priority decisions based off of feedback or not? And if you're not, I'm sorry, you can't really say you're listening to your customer.
Yeah. All right. Holden Bale from Merkle. Thanks so much for talking CX with us.
Thanks, Mike.
Did you like what you heard on this episode? Don't forget to join us online September 24th through 25th for free at the MarTech conference. Register today at martech.org/conference.